So our first speaker is Jason Shon Bennett, health researcher and best-selling author. Jason experienced really bad health for the first 25 years of your life. He will explain how dire that actually was, and through looking at what he was eating and researching things, he was able to cure himself, and he's now a very sought-after speaker. He's the author of many best-selling books, and so without further ado, Jason, come on up and I'll hand your stage to you.
Thank you. Evening, everybody. Yeah, I just want to clarify, if you need to go number twos, please go. It's really important to not hold on there. I do a lot of teaching about constipation and how to cure constipation. Kiwis are often constipated, so if you need to go, please go. Really important. I don't want anyone holding on, to look good or anything, okay? So, thank you for the intro. When I was asked to speak tonight, I thought, essentially there's one story I really want to tell, which is how sick I was and then how well I've now been, and what was those moments in the middle. What is it about my past that has changed and has me to have a different future in life now? That was the part that I thought was that kind of sweet spot. So a little bit about my history. I was born in 1967. My mum had toxemia when I was in the womb. So it was mid-60s and she had toxemia, and I was coming along in the womb. Once they discovered that, they realised I would die if I was kept in the womb. So they rushed her into Auckland Hospital, chopped me out. I was a little 2'9" bubba. So I've got 4 kids, and I've got a little granddaughter, a little 5-year-old granddaughter we got in the weekend, who's just the apple of our absolute eye. And but all my kids, including my granddaughter, were all 2 to 3 times the size of me when I was born. I look back on when I was born. So I was 2'9", and my dad used to carry me around in a little butter basket. The little 2-pound butter baskets that would 2 pounds of butter? That's how big I was. So I was very lucky to be alive. I spent my first 6 weeks in an incubator with breathing apparatus and tubes. I then ended up becoming a severe asthmatic. Hay fever, allergies, flus, bugs, colds, virus, bad acne, skin problems, digestive issues, weight problems, you name it. The first 20 or so years of my life were very rough, and I remember as a kid being flown into a hospital when I was down on holiday in Napier in a helicopter because, they thought I was going to die from an asthma attack. And literally I remember sitting in Green Lane Hospital in the middle of the night, looking down the hallway at the clock, just sitting up in bed, just trying to breathe, get enough air in, just so the clock could get to 4 o'clock when I was allowed another Ventolin shot, And so I developed asthma. I got it very, very badly, very severely, and I was on 16 shots a day of Ventolin for 20 years. And I was on Intel prevention as well. I was on steroid injections, so they'd often miss the vein, and then they'd put it in the other one. And of course you can imagine a screaming child trying to breathe, being held down, so a lot of traumatic stuff when I was young. So I was very, very unwell. And I got to the age and I just thought, oh, well, this is normal, and okay, well, that's what it is. And you take drugs to wake up, and you take drugs to get through the day, and you take drugs to go to sleep. I kind of thought, oh, well, that's how it is. And I asked doctors for advice, and they said, look, it's genetic, sunshine, so just take the drugs. And, they were good doctors, they just couldn't help. So I thought, okay, well, that's what it is. And then I got to the age of 20, and back then it was really easy to procreate. You'd essentially look at someone, wham, pregnant, So that's what happened. And first little bubba happened, and I was 21 at the time when I first became a father. My eldest boy is 31 this year. And when he was conceived, when he was in the womb, I had a really rigorous conversation with a woman at the time who was studying to be a naturopath. And she said to me, and I'm going to come back to this a bit later on because it will make a lot of sense a bit later on. She said to me, look, you're not going to be a very good father if you can't even get out of bed without having to take medication at 21. Seriously, what kind of dad are you going to be? And I remember looking at her and being so confronted, by this advice. It's like, well, what have I got to do about this? This is not my fault. I'm a victim here. I didn't do this. And so she got me thinking, and she said, you should change your diet. You eat rubbish foods. You're really sick all the time. You eat rubbish. You should change your diet. You'll get well. And I remember it was such a confronting conversation. It was 1987. There was no internet. There was no one there to teach me how to get well. But I had this brain shift where I sat there after sulking for about, 4 hours, sitting on the side of the bed, sulking and fuming at the world and raging against the man and the whole bit. I had this realization that actually I really wanted to be well. I actually wanted to be well. And I did 20 years of being sick every single day, taking drugs every single day just to get through the day, that I wanted to be well. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So then the next day I got up and I walked down the road to the health food store. And I walked in the health food store. It was called Harvest Whole Foods in Grey Lynn. And I poked my head in and said, oh, hello. And they went, oh, hello, come on in. I went, ooh. And I started looking, and that was the beginning of my journey. And I started learning about health and longevity. I started importing books from America. I did anything that I could to be well. And it's one of those 3 key things that I want to impart tonight, is when I went from being unwell to well. And it took 5 years. So the moment it happened, I then started changing my diet. I started regularly fasting. So I've been fasting since the mid-80s. I now teach fasting and longevity and how critical fasting is, part of our genetic makeup. And I studied genetics and epigenetics, which is how we dance within our environment and how what we do impacts on our genetics and our immune system and how long we live. And then I started looking at diet and longevity and plant-based diets. And I've been a plant-based eater for 35 years now. I haven't had a piece of meat for 35 years. So, I should be dead now from a lack of protein or iron or B12, right? But actually, no, I'm actually in great health, thanks very much, Anyway, so it took me about 5 years. I was regularly fasting, I was doing enemas. I was lying back, and the enemas in those days were like a hot water bottle with a tube and some Vaseline, and that was it. That was the enema, So I'd be lying back doing the enemas, then I'd fast. And anyway, it took about 5 years, and I realized one day that I'd cured everything. And it kind of dawned on me one day, I just hadn't had an asthma attack for months. No hay fever in Auckland. And Auckland is the known hay fever capital of the entire world, if you're a hay fever sufferer, So I realized one day, oh my God, I'm well. And then I carried on, I thought, well, this is worth it. And then I carried on the way and carried on. And then after another 10 years or so of being well and being so, in my friends' words, irritatingly healthy, that they all started asking me for advice. And they started asking me to write. So I wrote books, and now I speak and lecture and talk, and that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing. And it kind of brings me to right now, a very short version of it, but that brings me to right now. But, here's the interesting thing. When you look at the first 20, 25 years of my life, I'm the same 23,688 genes. When I was born, when I was 5, when I was 10, when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40, now I'm 52. I'm the same 23,688 genes I was when I was born, but they are expressing themselves differently. That's what I changed in my mid-20s. I changed how my genes express. And that's the power that you've got. Diet, lifestyle, environment, and genetics. Genetics is about 3% of disease risk. The rest is diet, lifestyle, and environment. That's why we know about lung cancer, 90% from cigarettes. Notice that cigarettes are not genetic. Cigarettes are a lifestyle choice, causing the number 1 cancer cause of killing deaths in the world, 6 million deaths a year, 600,000 innocents. Notice how it's not genetic. It's a lifestyle choice. Everyone get me here? Yeah. So, got to age 20. I changed my diet, lifestyle, and environment. 23,000 genes, same genes, all started expressing differently. I now haven't been sick once in 25, 27 years. So I never get a cold or a bug or a flu or a virus. I travel the world, I talk all the time, I'm around sick people all the time, and I never get sick. People go, oh, you've got good genetics. And I go, no, hold on. I said, I was sick for 20 years. No good genetics born here, boy. I changed how my genetics interact. I changed how my genetics express themselves. That's called your genetic expression. And the thing is, you've got complete control over it. It runs your immune system too, and very timely at the moment to have a good, strong immune system. Yeah. So anyway, I got well, and I've been well ever since, and now I talk and da-da-da. But the things I wanted to talk about today, bridging those two areas, when we talk about, what is the moment between the past and the present? What is the freedom? What are the areas? What are the things that kind of had me go from there to here? And there's 3 key things I think that I need to illuminate. The first one was being willing to know that I didn't know anything. That's the very first thing for me, was actually, when she challenged me and said, look, this is about your diet. You eat rubbish food. No wonder you're sick all the time with bad pimples and skin and rah, 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 rah. And I remember going, but food, diet, I couldn't quite get that food had anything to do with asthma or hay fever or allergies or skin, nothing. This was the 1980s after all. We're obsessed with Adam and the Ants and Duran Duran and not much else. That's what was going on. And for those of you who were there, you remember it, right? It's fantastic. Because all music stopped in 1989, as far as I'm concerned anyway. So, Anyway, so the first thing I realized, and the first thing that struck me in my own transformation, was that I had to get to the bottom of, I had no idea. I had no idea. And that whole place of not knowing suddenly means that you've got an open mind to then ask questions, to investigate, to consider things. So I considered, oh wow, what if I change my diet? Oh, well, what are plants? How do I eat plants? What about fasting? What if I don't eat meat? What about alcohol? And I gave up alcohol as well. And what about, giving up things and changing what you do? So for me, that was the first thing, was changing the fact that I knew it all. And realizing I actually didn't know it all at all. I knew nothing. And I mean nothing. So I started reading books, and I remember one of the first books I got, true story, was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. Some of you might know that book. It's like a legendary book in the health industry. Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, cool, okay. So I got the book, I got it over from America, I read it, and I went straight to the asthma page, because I was like, right, because this is about point number 2, which I'll get to in a second. I went straight to the asthma page, and I scrolled down, it said asthma, curing asthma, and it said the colour yellow. And it also said suppressed crying, and instantly I burst into tears. It was amazing. I just wept and wept and wept at just being told that my asthma was about suppressed crying. You know, it was part of it, obviously, you know, I'm very much about a holistic vision. But it certainly triggered it for me. The emotional kind of release started then. But what was more interesting was the colour yellow, so I thought, oh, okay, yellow. So I painted all my clothes yellow, my shoes, everything, and for like a year I wore nothing but yellow. And I went to work every day in yellow, and everyone knew me as the yellow guy, you know. And I got enormous amount of grief for it. You can imagine, right? In the 1980s, when all everyone does at 18 or 19 or 20, 21, when I was, 21, 22, is go out, have beer, get drunk, and drive their cars, really loud cars everywhere. You know, that's all we did. That was it, you know. And you can imagine me going, oh, you know what? I'm giving up the alcohol because, you know, and now I teach about what alcohol actually does. Don't even get me started on that tonight. Right? But, you know, I gave up the alcohol and the meat and all the bad food and started eating a, plant-based whole food diet. Regular enemas and fasting, You imagine how strange that was for people wearing yellow as well the whole time in that culture? It was pretty out there for people. But it's amazing how things have changed now. And, of course, the internet and the availability of information now has made it so that actually a lot of that research is available now. But here's the point number 2 that I wanted to make. When I started painting everything yellow, dyeing my clothes and doing everything, it's because I had attitude number 2, and this was the second shift for me. The first shift was, I have no idea what I'm doing. None. No idea. I don't know anything. I'm not an expert on health. I don't know anything. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an naturopath, nothing. That was number 1. Number 2 was, you know what? It's possible to be well. And that was a huge shift for me. It's like, oh my goodness, is it possible to actually be well? Imagine what it would be like to get up without having to take shots of Ventolin every morning and through the day. Imagine being able to get through a day without medication at 20. Imagine that. And that for me was a revelation. Then the third step was I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that was the big one. And when I coach people now, I've worked with over 1,000 people all over the world over the last 15 years or so and help people get well and transform their lives, because my commitment is that everyone should be able to live to 100 in great health. And that's what I've dedicated my life to. Everyone should be able to get to 100 in great health, period. So that's what my passion is, longevity for everybody. And I've worked with people in their 80s, their 90s, and their 100s, and I can tell you, when you're at 100 looking back, it's a different view than when you're 70 looking back, or when you're 60 looking back, or when you're 40 and you're struggling with medication every day. It's a completely different conversation in life. So I'm really passionate about that. And what I noticed about myself was I was willing to do anything. So am I willing to embarrass myself in public and wear yellow? Yes. Am I willing to stick tubes up my backside and do enemas? Yes. Am I willing to fast for 30 days? Yes. Am I willing to examine what comes out of my bum to see how healthy I am and how my bowel is functioning, which is a measure of a microbiome, which gives you your genetic expression, which runs your immune system? Yes. Was I willing to do all that? Yes, I was. And that for me was the key thing that had it change for me, is that I was willing to do whatever it takes. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've had 25 years of being sick. I've now had 27 years of being well every day, and I can tell you which one is better. Seriously, it is worth it. The work you do is worth it, whatever you have to give up. And it's an interesting one. I was leading a fasting retreat last weekend, and one of the things I put to the group was they were talking about, what are you willing to give up to be well? I said, for most Kiwis, it's, cheese or coffee or, alcohol or meat or, cream buns or whatever it is. Everyone has chocolate and sugar and all the usuals. And I said to them, here's an interesting thought. Imagine if the one thing you're not willing to give up is the one thing keeping you sick. Is it worth it? And it was an interesting conversation. It went like the room went like this. Went really quiet. Everyone goes, and everyone's processing all the, is it cheese, is it chocolate? Thing is, everyone knows what it is. Right now, you'll all know exactly what it is that you're not willing to give up. And when you work with people to get well, that's often the first thing I say is, look, I can get you well. However, it's not going to be me that gets you well. It's going to be you doing the work. I can inspire you and educate you and give the information. But it's going to be up to you to make that choice. That makes sense? Yeah, because behavior, healthy habits and behavior change is all about us doing it. We're covering all kinds of things like this tonight. But it's about what you do every day, not what you say every day. It's what you do that makes the difference. And so I got into that headspace of understanding that actually I was willing to do whatever it took. That's what changed it for me. I then started doing anything. I'd read a book about wheatgrass juicing. So I then, wow, great. I bought a sack of certified organic wheatgrass wheat from Harvest Whole Foods. I took it to Waiheke on the ferry. I lived on Waiheke for a while. And then I soaked it overnight and drained it. And then I started sprinkling it on trays. And I bought 31 trays of gardening stuff from the local garden place in Waiheke. I had 31 trays of wheatgrass rotating every day. Every day I would water them, rotate them, and every day I'd get the latest one and I'd chop it by hand and hand juice it, get my little cup of wheatgrass. Before there was any place in New Zealand that made juice or made hummus or made any of these things that we're all used to now. And I noticed that I would get well, and then when I got well, it was worth being well. And so my passion, I've got 5 values that I live my life out of, 5 single values. And when I look back on my life, I can see those 3 things are what took me from the past, to give me that freedom into where I am now. Number 1 was, there was possibility. It actually might not be that I'm genetically predisposed to asthma. It could actually be. Actually, it's about what I do. So that was number 1. Number 2 was, I actually have no idea what to do. I need teachers. I need educators. I need experts. And there was no one there. I had to literally read almost everything before the internet came online. And that's why I'm passionate about teaching now, because it's so good to be able to pass that on and contribute. And then number 3 was, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. They were the 3 key things. But when I look back on, I've kind of lost my track now. Where was I going? I can't even remember. What? Values. Thank you. Values. Thanks to my beautiful wife at the back of the room. Hey, baby. Thanks for that. Awesome. Home run there. Values. So when I look back, I can also see that what shifted there, and I didn't distinguish this until a few years ago. I didn't actually distinguish what shifted in my value set, because I didn't even actually understand what values were at the time. I was just a young Kiwi bloke, with no knowledge about anything. But when I look back, I can see that there was 5 values that I've lived my life out of since. And those 5 values have given me the future that I've got and the life I love now. And I love my life. I'm so in love with my life that I've got. I've got these 4 amazing kids. Trey's 30, Tove's 28, Luke's 19, Joel's 16, Hadassah's about to turn 5. And we've got her this weekend from Friday afternoon. I'm just completely granddad mode with her. It's just fantastic. I cannot wait. We don't want to give her back, ever. We just want to, she's like number 5. We just want to raise her ourselves. We just get so excited. And she's got the day off school because she's so excited about going to see Nanny and Granddad, Nanny and Granddad. So, But when I look back on my values, I can see there's 5 things, And what I also did was I let go of anything that wasn't related to those 5 values. And that's another thing that I can see now with maturity and being, a granddad. I can look back and go, actually, that shifted there without me knowing. There was a subtle shift that went on with me inside. And so the 5 values that I have, that everything I do lives out of, number 1 is family. So that's my wife, my children, my wider whānau. Number 2 is friends. And I absolutely urge you to work on your friendships. If you haven't got friendships the way they want, work on them. I started working on my friendships about 20 years ago, and I've got groups now that I see regularly. It's amazing. If you set up a commonality with people, you'll see them regularly. Instead of going, we must catch up, and then 3 years goes by. We must catch up, and 5 years go by. And one of the top 5 regrets for human beings is I wish I spent more time with my friends. For people on their deathbeds, one of the top 5 regrets. Really important to spend time with friends. Number 3 for me is health, obviously. Health is a huge passion for me. I love talking about it and educating and delving into it and studying it every day. And so health is number 3. Number 4 is music, because to me, without music, life's kind of almost not worth living. Music is just so important, particularly 1980s music for that matter. And number 5 is contribution, is making a difference. Because when you contribute and when you dedicate your life to making a difference, literally you switch off the dopamine. You start to have more oxytocin in the brain, which gives you a robust brain, protects you from mental degradation, protects you against mental illness. All kinds of things happen in the brain when you're committed to internal happiness and to contribution, which gives you that serotonin and oxytocin, builds a rigorous, strong brain, as opposed to dopamine, which is about the next coffee and the next piece of alcohol and the next pay rise and the next boat and the next house and the next rah, 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 rah. And you chase it until you get old and realise that actually it wasn't worth chasing in the first place. That whole thing that we do in the West. So the dopamine addictions. So when I look back, I can see those are the 5 key values that I had. And how's my time going? Am I all right for time? Yeah? I'm not getting yelled at? That's great. Yeah? Okay, so that was kind of it from my perspective. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Have I got 5 minutes? Okay, what should we talk about? So yeah, for me that was the key thing, and I really want to urge you all and communicate that it actually is worth the pain, because you do have to go through pain to change. Change is not an easy process. It really isn't. But it can be, and there's some great skills that you'll get shown tonight here. But, the pain of change for me was more important and more valuable than the pain of staying the same. The pain of actually transforming was better. And it's so worth it. I can tell you, being able to keep up with your grandchildren in your 50s is really, really good fun. Literally, it's so great to be able to go out and do things, And I never thought I would think about that because I never planned on being a granddad or a parent. It just kind of all happened as these things do, You look at someone, they get pregnant, you have kids, and off you go, And, and then they start reproducing and off they go. So the pain of change for me outweighed the pain of staying the same. When I look back on my life now, I'm so grateful. I look back and I can genuinely say I'm so grateful I went through what I went through. I don't have it as this terrible thing. I have this thing as, my God, if I hadn't gone through that, I would not be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be able to contribute the way I can now and get such joy from it and make such a difference, which, feeds me as well. So, yeah, that's me. I think I'm done. I mean, we could go off on all kinds of tangents now, but I think I'd, be good to hand over, because otherwise I'll talk all night. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Thanks, Jason.